Hello, everybody, and welcome to our third free webinar in the 2020 Smart Building series. And today we are talking about workplace well-being in, unfortunately, the age of COVID-19. And I'm very happy to welcome back, actually, a friend of the webinar series. That is Anne Wernand from Mapiq. Hey, Anne, how are you doing?
Hi, James. I'm good. How are you?
Not bad, thank you. Not bad at all. And definitely looking forward to this chat. So let me just, for everybody listening, let me just frame the conversation today. Anne has been working hard over at Mapiq on this pyramid of workplace well-being. And what we wanted to do today was to talk about that, but of course, talk about it in the context of what has been happening in the world for the last month or 2 months with this global pandemic and its sort of impact on the workplace. So that's what we're going through today. Anne is going to give us a presentation for, I guess, around 20-25 minutes. And then we're going to open it up for a Q&A. And I definitely recommend people to get questions in for either Anne or myself. Anne has a great background in behavioral research. So we've really got somebody on the line here who can help us answer some of these pressing questions that we've all got, I'm sure, at the moment. And then beyond that, just if you want to subscribe to our content, you can absolutely do that. And you can do that through either YouTube, if you search for Smart Building Series. We'll be putting up the recording of this up there. And also you can find us on Spotify and also iTunes. So that's me done. Anne, over to you.
Thank you, James. I hope everybody's doing well and is healthy sitting at home. I'm really looking forward to this webinar that was in the making now for a while. And because I still think that workplace well-being is very important, and especially during this time. What I did is that I actually adjusted our workplace well-being pyramid a little bit, and I'm going to go over those changes in this presentation. But I also want to point out the fact that we added a chapter on the COVID-19 virus and how that affects workplace well-being at the moment, but also take a little step into the future on what you can do as an organization when we are allowed to get back into the office. So those 2 points I'm going to go over during this presentation. But first, a little bit of an introduction I thought would be appropriate. I work at Mapiq, and we build a smart office platform. You can see here on the right. We see the office as our playground, and we are really focused on a mission here to make sure everybody has a great day at work. For us, that means having no friction in your workplace. So people can easily find facilities, people, other colleagues, and spaces. And on the other hand, we really want to make sure that organizations get the most out of their office space. So we focus on workplace efficiency in that sense. A little bit about me. I thought it would be nice to have a face with a voice, so that's me. I have a background in psychology, and my role in Mapiq is at this moment behavioral researcher. That means that I am doing a lot of research into the origin of certain behaviors we see in the office. So, for example, claiming behaviors or the claiming of desk when you're supposed to work flexible is something that fascinates me. Why do people do that? And we maybe understand it better to make sure that people maybe share a little bit more easy. So fascinated by human behavior. And also at the moment, I think it's very interesting to see how people react to this pandemic. So what I expected to do was talk about the office environment and what are all the different needs employees have there to ensure their well-being. But of course, because of the current situation, I'm also going to talk about this environment. And this is a perfect, I think, home office. I looked up a picture that would be my ideal. But of course, it's not for everyone. And I'm going to try to see how the aspects of well-being that we see in office life are now actually still needed in our home office, and how we can maybe, as an organization, still address those needs. I really hope today that you are inspired, and I'm gonna hear some new things about what the effects of Corona are, because I think there's already been so much out there, but I really hope that this brings some new perspective to things for you. I'm going to present a framework, the pyramid of workplace well-being, and this is really a framework. It helps you think about this really abstract, broad term of well-being, and I really hope that you can use it yourself to maybe see how you contribute to this pyramid as a company or as an individual, like where you are at. Are you at the top, for example? So it's really a way to think about this topic. And of course, I'm also going to address some of the things technology can add into supporting well-being, especially during this time. And I also have a sneak peek revolving that on something we worked on now a couple of weeks that can support when we get back into the office. Okay, well, to start off, I am going to ask what is well-being to start off with, because it's a very broad term and there's been so much information out there. We decided to go with this definition. Well-being means being physically and mentally willing to contribute in the workplace and being engaged in work. Or in this time, maybe it looks a little bit more like this. Mentally means being physically mentally willing to contribute and being engaged at work. So leave out the workplace for now. But I think more importantly, what underlies this is why should companies invest in well-being? And I think it's always good to zoom out a little bit to make sure that we understand why we talk about this topic. So why should companies invest in well-being? Well, because people have the highest value, and that's already been known for a long time now. But I think a lot of you guys would recognize this graph. This is actually the typical spend for an organization per square meter. And this really symbolizes how valuable people are. For example, you spend $3 on utilities per square meter, 30 on buildings or on your office, but 300 on actually people in terms of salary. So there's the true costs for an organization. And this became more and more important over the last decades, I would say. This next graph is going to show the market value, where that lies for organizations and how that changed it over the last decades. So you see the tangible assets and the intangible assets. The tangible assets are basically products, machines, like really the touchable things, and the intangible assets are people. They're that great salesperson you have in your team, this perfect organizer, human capital, you can also call it. And you see over the last couple of decades that human capital became more and more important to decide the market value of organizations. So that's interesting. I think when you think about it, people always talk about how robots are going to take over. I think we need a lot of human brain capacity to create those robots, and you see that here in this graph. So companies need the right people, of course. That's the next step. So why we should invest in well-being. And this is going to be a challenge in the upcoming years, because we're looking at a shortage of talent, actually. This is a map that shows the shortage of talent in the upcoming 10 years. And as you can see, it's mostly affecting the Western society, with also Russia and Japan, who are going to have a big problem. But the interesting thing is what I did when I was preparing this presentation was when you look at this map now, this is the impact of the impact of the coronavirus at the moment in absolute numbers. So here we can see that the coronavirus is actually hitting the hardest in regions that are already having a shortage in talent. And it could mean actually two things, because it can also mean that there's going to be a lot of talent available because of the decline in the economy. But then still the importance of getting those right people there, because we are going to be in a declining economy, is going to be more and more important for organizations. But it's going to be a hard time. You need to have the right people in your organization as fast as possible, because we need to respond to this crisis. Because what do we want to achieve with those talented people? And I already addressed this a little bit now, but I think the most important things that organizations need to do now is adapt quick enough to this changing world around us. You need good I think this Corona crisis is a really good example on how quickly things can change. And as an individual, but also as an organization, you need to be constantly ready for that change and be agile. The next slide, I actually want to ask the question, but it's not possible, of course. These are some company names, and my question was, what do they have in common? The answer is that they didn't adapt quick enough. Yeah, they all were market leader at some point, but they didn't respond enough to changing things in their environment. It wasn't even a crisis at that point. This guy already knew that. This is Charles Darwin. I have a couple of old man pictures in my presentation, but I think it's always nice to remember that he already said that it's not about being the strongest, it's really about being able to quickly adapt. And how does that relate to well-being? Well, actually, this is a study last year that pointed out the relationship between well-being and this adaptability. We see that employee well-being is strongly related to work engagement, and that again is strongly related to career and job adaptability. And that means being able to have a new job profile and make it your own very quickly, or adapt to something that's happening in the organization. So I think that's a really interesting link, and also represents why well-being is so important, especially now during the crisis. And well-being has already been on the agenda for a while now. Employers are aware. This is research that pointed out that 74% of employers view well-being already as an important aspect and a useful tool for recruiting and retaining staff. But also employees themselves. This is a research that pointed out that 89% of workers at companies that support well-being efforts are more likely to recommend a company as a good place to work. And this is going to be even, I think people are going to almost demand it now in this time where health is so on the radar for everybody. So then we asked ourselves, how can we help organizations create offices that improve this well-being? Or for now, how can we help organizations to improve well-being in general? And we started off with creating that framework to understand what we were talking about and where we could make an impact. And then you were looking at the Mapiq pyramid of well-being. And before I dive into this pyramid and I go through all the different layers, I first want to introduce to you the inspiration of this pyramid. This is Abraham Maslow, and he is the founder, actually, of the hierarchy of needs, a theory that maybe a couple of you guys already know. I'm going to go over it in a second. But the interesting thing, I think, that not a lot of people know about Maslow is that he was the first psychologist who actually looked at human motivation from a positive side. Before him, you had, for example, Freud, who was only thinking about human motivation and behavior from frustration. So we only do things out of frustration, is basically what he's saying. And this guy changed that. He was really convinced that people are here to fulfill their potential, and that we all are on the road to do so. And I think that's even more interesting that he founded this theory, the hierarchy of needs, in 1943, in the middle of a crisis in World War II. Which makes it even more, I think, special that he already looked at human potential that way. This is his pyramid. It consists of 5 layers, and the way he looked at it is that we are all want to reach the top, but we first have to check some boxes before we get to the next layer. There's been a lot of critics on his theory later on, but still, there's also a lot of inspiration there, I think. So to go over the layers quickly, you see underneath you have the physiological needs. That's really basic in his point of view. So water, food, you basically breathe. If you check those boxes, you move on to safety. And this is really having a home, having financial security. This is how Maslow looked at, for example, jobs also. And good health. You feel safe. When you check those boxes, you can move on to the belonging layer. You can actually make friends, maybe have a romantic relationship, and this will help you. You get some information, you get some feedback. It will help you build self-esteem in Maslow's eyes. And this self-esteem is basically the foundation to become self-actualized. And self-actualized, he describes here as a zone of optimal functioning and flow. He was really specific who was in the self-actualization zone. Not a lot of people in his point of view. Einstein was one of the lucky few. But this is how the definition is. People are self-aware, concerned with personal growth, less concerned with the opinions of others, and interested in fulfilling their potential. I think that's a really good definition and really nice to look at a workforce that maybe would feel this way. I think that's, yeah, would be nice. So this is our inspiration, and let's see how we use that knowledge of Maslow in our own pyramid. We simplified it a little bit. We made 3 layers, and we pointed out the aspects that we think are most important in those layers. What are the needs of employees and how you can address them. You can find the whole paper on our website. So today I'm going to give a brief introduction. The concrete layer. Well, these are the 10 factors that we think are really important to ensure, basically to ensure that these are your basic things you can do to make the office more healthy and help people get well. And this is different than what Maslow says. We go a little bit further than only food and water. As you can see, we have high demand for offices these days, and we see, for example, with nutrition, is there a healthy lunch? Is there enough daylight? Technical support is nowadays basically a basic need if you are in the office. But also the design of the space, everything, we put here in this concrete layer that's important and contributes to feeling well. What's interesting in this time is that these are actually the things that are easily controllable for organizations when people are at the office. But these are also the things now that are very hard to control. Because not everybody has this workplace at home, and a lot of those needs in a concrete layer are maybe not met at the moment. I see a lot of companies doing everything they can in their power to actually provide support in those concrete needs. For example, a working from home budget to ensure good physical health, that you sit up straight. Also encourage healthy eating and movement. Fitness movies are shared within the company. And also IT support, I think, is now everywhere. People are using 2 screens at home. I think companies are doing everything in their power to make sure that you can still control some of the factors here. I also want to address quickly that, for example, temperature, that's a big complaint in the office, is now something that we can actually control ourselves in our homes. So not everything is maybe that bad at this layer at the moment. So what can we do in this layer? What can we add? I think one of the very interesting things is that we can get new routines, and this is also very important. I talk about habits in my other webinar with James, but this is still one of the most fascinating things to me. And we are at this point, we are all put out of our normal environment, our habits, our routines. We go to the office in the morning, have our coffee. We are pulled from that, and we are at home, and we have new habits. And finding those habits is very important at the moment. So still, get up, have your coffee, but then maybe in the home setting, but still keep track of them and maybe adjust them a little bit. Then you have something to hold on to, and that's important during this time crisis. So build habits, also now working from home, build your routines. And the interesting thing is that if you look at this now, you can also look at the same thing that's going to happen if we get back into the office, because then we hit the reset button in terms of how people use the space. We have a window there that people are able to form new habits, maybe try some other desks that they always use. So I also want to address here that there are some things we can use in the upcoming time. So that's also my second point. We can also think about the back to the office strategy in the upcoming months already, and have a plan ready to how to help people use the space maybe in a different way, and be aware of that. And I think here it's obvious that technology has a role to play, because there are some things that in the concrete layer, one of the biggest aspects is safety. Because for me, I put it in the concrete layer because it's so important, and especially now. And then I mean safety, that people are, they can keep enough distance when they get back into the office, but also that it's clean enough, that they have insurance that a desk has been cleaned, for example. I expect a lot of people that they will, a little bit of an anxiety of the virus still, also, although we are allowed to get out. So technology can really help to give that information, to make sure that people can make those healthy choices and not be in a crowded space and use desks that are actually clean. I want to give a sneak peek of something we've been working on to support this at the moment. This is a floor occupancy map we've been working on, and as you can see, we adjusted a little bit of the algorithm. So yeah, it's busier sooner. And as you can see now, if you hang this in the hallway, when people come in, they can easily make the choice not to go to the 9th level, for example, and that not that they go there and then see that it's too crowded. So I think these are very, very simple solutions that really help people feel safe when they get back into the office, which should be the main priority for organizations. Okay, back to the pyramid. The second layer, this is the belonging layer. That is really our need to feel part of a bigger group and to have that interaction. It's really a human need we're social animals, as always saying. And there are 4 things that are important in this belonging layer. And this is also where the crisis, in my eyes, hits the hardest, of course. We have connection, which I refer to also as connection with space, place attachment, as I always call it. It's something that sometimes, although people aren't there, you are attached to the office, the same way you are attached at home. So when you come home, and although there's not somebody there, sometimes you still feel that calmness, like, oh, I'm home. It has to do with place attachment. That's taken away now that we have that in the office. So we can see what technology can do there. And then, of course, the contact with colleagues. We are now compensating that through video calls, to Skype. I use 10 different tools at the moment to stay in touch. But yeah, that's hard. We don't have a real face-to-face interaction. Other thing that is overlooked now, I think, and very important, is confirmation. Giving and receiving feedback is something that's hard over video and something people don't often do, but also appreciate each other is something that often also goes through nonverbal communication tools, nonverbal communication. So a smile, for example, when somebody tells you something, gives you confirmation, oh, I'm doing the right thing. And this is something I think we're going to miss in the long term if we're not paying attention to this. And companionship. We always see it. It's nice when colleagues become friends. And now actually those companionships can be the glue of making sure everybody is still included. And check in with your buddy, for example, every week. Make sure that it still feels like a group. To address the importance of awareness, I think, on how social interaction work, I want to show you the Allen curve. This is actually showing that even email contact, as well as face-to-face contact, go down when people are further away in distance. So this means really, literally, out of sight, out of mind. It doesn't really matter if that's then not a face-to-face contact. It also means that your email contacts are going down. It's just how the brain works. If you see someone, I needed to send you something, or I needed to ask you something. You don't have that at the moment. It's all probably you talk to your own team the most. And this is really addressing it. And I think being aware of this is the first step, and then you can see if you can. So how can we do that? First thing is to maybe support non-familiar contact. For some people, to have a chat or have a video call who won't necessarily talk to each other for work, but would bump into each other at coffee machine. And also appreciation. I already pointed out that when I was talking about confirmation. A funny thing here, or an interesting thing I found, is that there's a lot of research in psychology that actually got the vibe out of text you are writing, because of course it's not only video calling, it's we chat a lot now, we write a lot of emails, and the words you use in emails actually set off an emotional state. So using more positive words, being more conscious about that, could be a really great way to get positive vibes out there and appreciate someone's efforts. And as I talked for myself, like I wouldn't do this normally. I can be very blunt when I type, but during this time, it's really really good to be aware that you not should type compliment, for example, and be aware of the words you chose. Second thing is provide a home-based check-in, and this has to do with the place attachment I mentioned earlier. I think a good example here is Slack. When people come into Slack, you see the bump turning green. It's the same feeling as people come into the office, for example. I think that's really nice, and it helps to create that feeling, oh, we're here together. We're still at some virtual place together. And also share a status update, for example, vacationing in Fiji is maybe not the best example here, but I thought it was also funny. But yeah, to maybe compromise a little bit for the fact that we are not in the same place, we can be on the same platform and compensate for that. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is really, again, about when we get back into the office, make sure teams can sit together. Like I expect certain faces to come, but that we won't be able to be in the office at once all together. So the worst thing that can happen then is that when we can finally see each other face to face, that half of the team is not allowed to come in because there are already too many people. And I think this is also something where technology can come in and support that, to make that go in a structured way and make sure that the right people see each other when we finally are allowed. Then the last level, identity and autonomy, the actualization needs. And I think this is interesting at the moment, because what I always present in this level is that we are really big believers in high feeling of autonomy. And that means that people have the choice in when, where, and how they work. This graph really shows that there is such a positive relationship between high sense of autonomy and job performance, job satisfaction, workplace satisfaction, but also innovation. And that's what we're looking for right now. And now, actually, at this moment, employers are actually forced to give their employees more autonomy to decide when or how they want to work. And I think that could be also something positive. Maybe see how we can keep that when we get back into the office. Keep that little bit of freedom and let people have their own schedule, come in when they want. This is also another research that points out the importance of that autonomy. So we have team autonomy and individual autonomy, both having a strong relationship with team creativity. So yeah, if they feel that they are in charge themselves, people do their best work. So what can we do in this level? Well, as I said, trust also. I think this is important. Trust your employees, they do their best job, and keep trusting when we get back into the office. Maybe some people will still want to work one day from home. And I think it could be a good thing. Share the mission and the vision at this point through digital tools. I think it's very important to still stay aligned on those, on the bigger goal at this point. If you're not sharing the office and not seeing each other, it's very important that people have the same end goal in mind to motivate their daily actions. And the last one is that empowerment is more important now, but also when we get back into the office. And this also has a psychological background. People don't like insecurity or uncertainty. And we are at uncertain times. Of course, we have no idea what's going to happen. It's constantly new news. You have to adjust to that news. And our brains don't like that, to be really honest. But there are things that you can do to deal with that uncertainty. And those are sometimes really simple things, because the first thing that we can do is actually focus what's in front of us. And maybe this is really recognizable for some of you, but for example, I hear a lot of colleagues now planting or focusing on growing their plants. It's something really small that you can control and gives you a feeling of comfort, I think. this is also something you can share with each other. But really, the small things to get back into, get a little bit of control in a world basically can control at the moment. Also, distraction. Learn something new. Maybe for your job, it's really good that you learn a different language. Focus on that. It's basically a really good way to distract yourself from that uncertainty. And when we get back into the office, I think this is very important to also use technology to get people, give them control of how they want to do their work and how they want to plan their workday and what they need for that. After weeks of months of sitting at home, I think they're also ready to be empowered and not be bothered by all the little stuff as, oh, this meeting room is full, or, oh, I need a place to focus. No, they need to be empowered to have the day they want at the office at that moment. Okay, I'm also a little bit over time, I see, but that was our pyramid. I really hope you enjoy the adjustments. After this webinar, I wrote down this extra chapter on Corona that James will send out. And otherwise, you can download it on our website. Thank you so much. And I hope you stay tuned. We have some updates coming up in the upcoming weeks on our products also in times of Corona. So I hope you enjoy this. Thank you.
That is fantastic. Thank you. Very, very interesting presentation. I think some really practical advice as well, which useful, not just for people thinking about workplace and how to improve it, but just on a general level, how we can all stay sane during this time. So yes, we will we will put a link to that what you can see on the screen now. So when we put this recording up on the website, we'll include a link to that, and then also a link to where you can download the white paper, the research paper that Anne's produced. Yeah, that's on your website, right, Anne?
Yeah, that's also on the website. Yeah. I will make sure you get a link. Yeah.
Great. So questions now. Anyone with questions for Anne about what we've just seen, or maybe even some more general questions about if you guys have some pressing issues or want to get some more information about, potential strategies for thinking about, when we return to the office. I think that was something I pulled out actually, Anne, about having this kind of back to the office strategy ready, or getting it ready now, because we will be going back at some point.
Yeah, I think that's very important, and that we already start thinking about different scenarios in that sense. Yeah, I think we can also put it into action quite soon already, because you already see, you can also already make calculations at the moment. If you would, for example, need to have a 1.5 meter distance, that's in the Netherlands what we have to keep in mind. You can also calculate already if your office is corona proof, to call it that way, and if people are able to do that, if you look at desks, for example, or that you need to make adjustments already. So I think that's already very practical.
Yeah, and then again, you mentioned it, and I think this is something that we wrote about last week as well, or the beginning of this week, about this potentially this kind of phased situation of getting back to work, where I think perhaps we could see a scenario where let's say 50% of the workforce can go back, or maybe the rest work from home, or and then how we can manage that. So yeah, I thought it was interesting when you were talking about, we are probably going to be relying more on this virtual communication, even when we are back in the office. And who knows, as you said, we may get new routines from this, and it may, do you think that this could be a catalyst towards more flexible working practices in the future?
Definitely. I think definitely this can be a turning point for a lot of organizations that were maybe afraid to work in a more flexible way for a long time, and now forced to. But they also see some of the upside of that. And yeah, I think we're going to look at real estate differently. I expect a huge increase in flexible working, actually. And also for employees, I think you shouldn't forget, of course, that also we are very aware now of how important the office is, to have that face-to-face contact. That's, I think, above all what we learned. But also that, yeah, sometimes to have a little bit of focus time is nice, and that flexibility could add a balance between those two things.
Yeah. There's kind of like a follow-up question here from what I just asked then. What do you think will be the influence on the way of working in the office after we've been through this? So, I mean, from my perspective, I can see things, you know, there's kind of practical or obvious things like hygiene, I guess. But can you see anything else? I mean, you mentioned there like desk spacing. Are there other things that you think will be will influence
the way we work,
how we within the office environment?
Yeah, I think I'm very curious. I think the hygiene is going to be very important in the first couple of months. And actually, it was already on our radar. A lot of people get a nice feeling of when they know that the desk is clean, and that they also support flexible working. Otherwise, you kind of hinder that because they don't feel comfortable, and that becomes more and more important. So yeah, I think that's one of the most important things that maybe will change. I'm really curious how the social distance is going to go. If people, keep their distance for a long run, even if they're not asked to, because of fear, that it could be the case, and then they will work from home more often due to that reason. I think there are a couple of scenarios here. But that it has an influence, I'm sure of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that question. If anyone else has something, please type it in. Yeah, and again, one thing I picked out as well from your presentation was this, like, obviously the way that we're communicating now is radically changed. We're doing a lot more online. And I guess that's going to be a huge psychological shift because we're not, I don't suppose, very good at communicating like across those types of technology. You know, as humans, we're very good in person. We can communicate a lot with our bodies. And I guess actually like that's really difficult or more difficult. You know, even just things, for example, like sarcasm, like it's very difficult to get anything like that across in text or perhaps even a video call. But I mean, how do you think that are there obvious things that we can do to improve that? You mentioned, I think, a few in the presentation, but
I think the first thing is being aware of it. That nonverbal communication is actually very important. The other thing that actually could maybe help is you have that. It's better with people you know very well. Then still you can sense a sense of sarcasm in a phone conversation or a Skype conversation, and that can really help if you have a couple of people in your organization that you can communicate very well with, to use that and to make sure that they are going to be the glue that holds things together. Because I think it's possible to communicate through video conferences in a more spontaneous way. It's only very hard with people you don't know yet. So see how maybe you can combine calls where you know and don't know yet, and see how you can maybe use it as a catalyst to get to know each other and then find out what someone thinks is funny or not. I think we're exploring this in the upcoming time. We're gonna explore this in the upcoming time. And of course, there's going to go a lot wrong, and there's going to be a lot of miscommunications. But always be open. I think always check. Also, did you mean this when you were saying that? I think we can, be aware that you need to ask that sometimes, even more now. Would be my number one tip.
Great. Just a small thing, Anne. Your microphone is. You seem to be cutting in and out a little bit. I don't know if it's the Zoom, but maybe are you moving it away? No, that's much better now. Just
that's better. Okay.
Thanks. That would be great. We've got another interesting question here. What role do you see bioidentification working in the way offices function in the future. For example, thermal cameras to identify potential employees who have a fever. Are there any, I mean, yeah, that's something interesting. I know you guys, you showed us that map from Mapiq, which I guess is like, it's showing density of where people are. So that's an interesting tool for like social distancing. Is there anything else you guys have been working on, or you have some personal thoughts?
We've been working on mostly about this, the occupancy thing. So our vision is really that we give people the right information and they will make the healthy choice. So our strategy here is to make sure that they have all the information to make that choice, to use a desk or not to go to a certain floor. To answer your question on the temperature, I think maybe this really depends also in culture, but it of course also has a little bit to do with the privacy thing. And I think here in the Netherlands, that would be too soon. We really feel that people can make those decisions for themselves and that there are good decisions. So I won't see a future very soon for those type of technologies here, but maybe somewhere else it would work. I think it really is a difficult one in terms of privacy.
Yeah, no, it is. A few things on that. We've actually looked at some of this in our work. With the thermal camera thing, it's getting a lot of attention, but we've spoken to a few experts, manufacturers of cameras, that it looks like the accuracy at the moment of the temperature change that these thermal cameras can detect isn't perhaps as granular as you would need to really be very useful. And I think also, just in practical terms, with what we're seeing at the moment, some people are kind of asymptomatic anyway. So even if they had a temperature, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is COVID. It could be something else. So I think with that kind of situation, you might get a lot of false positives or false anyway.
Yeah, I think it's also good to have also a joint responsibility, that everybody has a responsibility here to take, and to measure your own temperature constantly and be aware of when you're not completely healthy, don't see anybody. Put that responsibility also to the individuals. I think that's very important.
Yeah, it is. And again, I think one thing that will come out of this is a lot more focus within organizations about business continuity. And I think I could see a situation where they're putting into practice, processes within their organization. So saying to employees, can you please check your temperature every morning?
Exactly.
Or if you're coming to the office, make sure you bring a mask, or make sure you bring gloves, or whatever it might be. I'm sure each company will come up with their own set of operating procedures. But again, I think that ties into this, like, be prepared, like make a plan now for coming back to the office and what that might include.
And inform people on those plans, I think, and include them. Maybe they have good ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Start communicating and working on it now. What else was I going to bring up? Just about this within your own pyramid, not this one we're looking at now, but the one, the blue one. You talked about the connection layer, about that being hit the hardest. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to, like, a lot of this is almost not just going to be changes in routines, but like potentially even changes in behavior, right? So handshaking, of course, is like a ubiquitous thing. Are we going to have to change those type of behaviors as well?
I don't know if we have to. I think it's gonna change in a way. It's gonna have an influence. It could be have a different way of greeting, but it could also be see less people. Maybe I think I see that sometimes it could also be an option, that people are a little bit more anxious to see a lot of different people, and I think we have build a world where that's so normal to do. but maybe that will also, yeah, you create a smaller world around you. I think that's something we really should, yeah, stay on top of. I'm really curious also what's going to happen, and I expect some changes here, yeah, but I hope also good ones, because I can also see that although it's not an ideal situation, people are also, yeah, trying so hard to stay connected and doing sweet things and helping each other out. So it's also a good thing to think about the positive things, even without that face-to-face interaction. Yeah, people are now having online drinks and still put their best effort in to be involved in each other's lives. So I think that's also a good thing to take from it. And as I speak for how we now work at Mapiq, also all from home, I still feel very connected, and everybody's trying hard. We get sent chocolates, for example, to keep the motivation up. So, yeah, there are also some positive things here that you can see that it's so important to have that contact, and people don't give up that easily. I think it's also a good one.
Yeah, no, I think it is certainly be fascinating to see how behavior changes. I wondered also maybe if it kind of perhaps, you know, a lot of we often, like, one of the complaints a lot of people who work in offices have is like the number of meetings, right? Or perhaps the number of unnecessary meetings. Perhaps that will be another cultural shift where number of meetings goes down, or then aren't so many people within each meeting, right? Because I guess even in, like, that's another continuity issue, right? You can't have so many people sick at the same time.
Exactly.
You
No,
want
I
to
think
limit your.
yeah, no, I think that's also a good example of something that's going to change, and maybe we can take some good things out of this period. I think building new habits is maybe also a part of that, is just being a little bit more flexible in also meeting time. I think now a lot of companies set rules because video conferencing is very exhausting, more exhausting than a normal meeting. So set your meetings to 30 minutes instead of an hour. I think you can still get the same amount of work done if we can stick to that when we get back to the office. I think it would be something really great to make it more efficient. Maybe do meetings more ad hoc. Don't invite everybody you think that should be there, but yeah, only the most important people. So those are really good things that can come out of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick reminder for everybody, we've probably got like about 10 minutes left. So now is a really good opportunity to get your questions in. You can see from the work and Anne's presentation, she knows a lot about behavioral science and research. So if you do have any questions, please put them in. I was going to also ask about actualization. I think that was fascinating, and like that definition you gave of this kind of zone of optimal functioning and fulfilling in your potential. And obviously, you guys are a technology company. How do you see, like, the main benefits of technology, within this pyramid? I mean, is it a case of getting people, like, it really helps to get people to the next level, or can you see it's like technology provides the foundation on which to build the organization?
Very good question. We see technology actually in every level contributing something, but also as a glue within. So, for example, the concrete needs, if they are met and you have the perfect office ready, then still you want to make sure that your teams are able to share that effectively and in a social manner. Then actually technology can be that interaction between the belonging needs as you have your team and the concrete needs that is available. So to make that more concrete, give, for example, a team a certain neighborhood for a while, and then move that around. And then you make the concrete needs a little bit more flexible in that sense if you add technology to it, and make it more responsive. And then in every layer we see an aspect of technology that could contribute. It's funny you asked the question from the actualization needs, because that's the hardest. And I thought about that a long time, because there's also something there that maybe isn't, completely built around technology, because it's also a moment of magic. I don't know. I hope a lot of you guys have had that moment at work when you were in the flow, having a good brainstorm with your colleagues. You were doing what you're supposed to do and you were good at it. I think that moment is really what it's all about, and how technology can get you there, I think, is mainly to make sure that all the hygiene factors basically are taken care of. So put you in the position to create that environment and put you in control where you can be in the zone. So you don't have to worry about if the brainstorm room is available. Like, I think a good example here is also Uber. We are now really like in control of your whole ride. You order it, it's there in a minute, then you're on to the next thing. Like, that's the feeling that I'm trying to explain, and how that helps getting your work done in the best way possible,
and allowing
that
actualize your needs. Good point. Interesting question here for you, Anne. I see a lot of positioning of how workplace tech companies are quickly shaping their message and solution around COVID-19. Do you think company stakeholders will get tired of this message? That's I think that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, that's a good question.
There's a lot of fatigue, I imagine, or even now, around it.
I think it's a very good question, and maybe my first answer would be yes, that maybe some that people are gonna get tired of it. I think it's very important as a company, if I talk from a tech company perspective, we try to stay on our mission, and we have a mission to give people a frictionless workday that doesn't change due to Corona. We only are gonna see if we can make easy adjustments in our already existing products to help people have that frictionless workday. So I think, if you're gonna constantly keep talking about this coronavirus and how you are responding to it as a company and what you're building for the Corona crisis, I think that can be tiring, but I think it can be really interesting to keep track of companies who are actually still on their mission and adjusting their services basically on what's happening in the environment of their clients. So that's really how we look at this. And I hope to give you some more updates the upcoming weeks, but it's really still about our mission to give frictionless workday in any way.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. You're right. Like the goal of the company can't get lost in this. But I think from my perspective, perhaps we're a little bit guilty of pushing out quite a lot of content related to it now. Like we've written some articles on it because it's such a big event.
It's not.
No, but I mean, in the sense that we don't want to just contribute to the noise around what's happening, because this is such a fluid event, and it's sort of hard to make judgments about like what's going to happen when we're kind of living it. But for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, when and it will at some point, of course, end and we get back to work, we'll still have the same challenges and the same goals that we had before it all started.
Yeah, and I think also, it can be also a little bit of an inspiration to look at some of the bigger things that are underneath it. Like the things I said, like if we are dealing with uncertainty, how we respond to that, that's not necessarily connected only to our pandemic at the moment. This is something that people always have trouble with, uncertainty in general. So I think if you also look at some of the themes that are addressed right now, like how do we deal with uncertainty? How can we support our workforce dealing with that? It can be, also applicable for a whole other scenario. So I think a lot of the information that we now share, maybe not only look at that from a Corona perspective, but also, to learn and to see why things are the way they are, and Yeah, I think that can also be very, not only in that framework, be seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One more question from me, and again, like we've got about 5 minutes, so if anyone has anything that they want to ask, then now's the time. One of the slides I thought you showed, and again, like it caught my attention, was about well-being linked to job adaptability. I thought that was very interesting,
Yeah.
and that comes from some research. Is that?
Yeah. Oh, it's a long
It's
yeah,
a
this
lot
is
long.
not the one. Yeah, that's from research. Yeah. I can also include that research. It's I think it's really recent. It was done last year. So yeah, it was subjective. So it was the subjective feeling of how well people felt and how engaged they were, but that there is a relationship between those two things, and then how quickly they adjust to changing environment, which I think is key if we get more understanding on what's driving that.
Is that in the sense that if, as somebody is more actualized, that they have the ability to adapt, or is it that they are more willing to adapt, or a bit of both?
Both, I think. But the theory is that if you are actualized, that you are able to adapt quicker and not get distracted by anything. So yeah, that's a good conclusion.
Yeah, no, it's all very fascinating, and I think that it's great that we can, you guys as a technology company, or us as a company that covers technology, talk about this kind of work as well, the behavioral aspects of it, because ultimately that's what we're just trying to do at the end of the day, isn't it? Make better experiences for people at work, and give them the environment to do their best they can, actualize themselves.
Definitely. I think good conclusion.
Well, I think that's a good time to bring everything to a close. Let's finish off maybe by saying that, of course, as I said, we've recorded this and I will be posting it online. And maybe you could just, if someone has questions for you, is there a good way to get hold of you?
Yeah, of course. They can send me an email. Maybe I can include that in the mail you're going to send out. But I'm always available. You can also reach me through LinkedIn.
Great. Okay. So yeah, anyone who wants to follow up about Anne or what Mapiq are doing, then definitely do that. And we will include some of the information, not just these slides, but we'll include that link if you want to download the Mapiq white paper as well. So yeah, just remains me to say thanks to everyone for listening. Appreciate your time and hope you found it useful. And of course to Anne, to say thanks for that really insightful, useful presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Yeah, that's it. Thanks very much, guys. See you soon.